Okay, hello everybody. So today we will speak about mind maps. And at first I would like to ask, please raise hand who never heard about mind maps. Okay, and now in the opposite way, who is using them almost daily? Good. So we can say that mind maps are amazing. And who raised the hand using them almost daily probably been in this state, I will do everything in mind maps. In theory, we can. Practically, that's a very, very bad idea. Because they are amazing, but there are some buts. And we actually have other tools, and these tools more or less work. So why we should introduce something else? Because it's a problem of a tool. And this applies to whatever tool. Let's demonstrate it on this image. Can we quickly say what is wrong on that image? Maybe the hammer is wrong if a tool is to screw something. But maybe the screw, it's a problem if we would like to make a nail. So we cannot say what is wrong. But what we can say is that that arrow always needs to go from a goal to tools I need to achieve these goals. Never in opposite way. And that's happening so often. We so often at first think about the tool and then how to achieve our goals in that tool, instead of what are my goals and what tools I can use. So speaking about tools, let's perform something which is called 4-quadrant model. Basically, you take your entire universe and you divide it to 4 squares. And on that vertical axis, we have ability to capture of some tool. And on that horizontal axis, we have ability to investigate. And now let's put the tools we use every day. So somewhere here are text editors. Then we have some note takers. A bit up, we have our life cycle tools like Jira, Rally, whatever. Then finally, mind maps. They are somewhere here. Then we have pen and paper. And then some unified model language, case tools, and so on. And this is my opinion, how I think they are located in this model. We can argue a bit about vertical axis. But one thing is clear. They are all on the left side. There is nothing here. I'm not aware of any tool in this area. In other words, our brain, our thinking process is still needed to investigate. Because this quadrant, it's about robots. It's coming. I don't believe that it will come in short future because it requires robots with thinking, but also with emotions, opinions, and so on. So that's why in my talk I will focus on this ability to capture. Why I like mind maps from this perspective. So why I like them? Because I like freedom in my work. And working with traditional tools, I very often feel kind of in chains of these tools. It's kind of example. I have a Jira, so how to do these things in a Jira. And then I'm focusing more on the tool than on the goals. And that's where mind maps can help, because they have 3 very important aspects. They are simple, visual, and they are quick. Starting with a simplification, and this is probably me explaining how mind maps are simple to somebody who don't know that or who doesn't realize that. It's like really, they are so simple because They have only few building steps. We have some central topic, subtopics, 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 and we are creating branches from that. And there is nothing more on that. And that simplicity is also at least how my brain works. I have some main topics which I am breaking down, more and more. That's cool, but this will not be enough. That's why we have the second benefit of a mind maps, and it's its visualization. And we all know that sayings that one picture is better than thousands of words, and actually the mind map itself is always a picture. Because with a mind map we can do a lot of things like grouping, summaries, colors, even pictures, videos, and so on. But like in Spider-Man, with a great power comes big responsibility, because we are adding all of these visual aspects to share some emotion. It means if somebody else looks to the mind map, he should feel the same. If I put there a red color, it probably means it's bad or it's very important. So be careful to use this visualization aspect wisely and to do not overuse it. And the last aspect of visualization is structure of the mind map itself. Because here we have a map. But it could also be a tree, it could be organization chart, it could be even a table. And you should choose the correct one based on the context. If you don't know what to use map. That always works. But if you somehow start feeling, I need something else, you can use something different. And even you can combine them. It could be map, and for example, this topic then could switch to tree, when it makes sense. And then finally, freedom and speed. With a mind map, everything is about seconds. You can add new topic in a second. You can drag and drop everything. And again, be responsible, because it's also very quick to damage any mind map. And give me 5 seconds and I change a mind map in the way you don't know how to put it back. So, big responsibility. And that's enough theory. So now I would like to share with you how I'm using mind maps in my daily life. And I selected only a few topics. And also at the end of the presentation, I will give you a link to downloads. So you can download all of these templates and feel free to reuse it. And it will be from a point of do's and don'ts, because every tool is good for something, it's not good for something else, and it's very wrong for something specific. So areas will be testing, Agile, anything else, and then all of these buts. And because we are on a testing conference, let's start with a testing. And as Forrest Gump said, testing is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're gonna get. However, you can be pretty sure that whatever you get, you need to analyze it, test it, report about it, change it, and so on. And all of these activities require structure. And mind maps are a tool which can provide this structure. I choose 3 most beneficial approaches when you can utilize mind maps. And let's start with something controversial, because it will be test strategy. Why test strategy? Because test strategy is most misunderstood document ever in our testing industry. It's supposed to be a living document, agreement between all stakeholders. But for whatever reason, it's usually a huge document, nobody reads, we as QAs have to maintain it, and it's really a pain in the ass. And the mind map are the way how to change it. Because if you forget about a huge document and you start with such mind map, 12 points, and every project is different, so maybe you will have more points. I doubt you can reduce it to less because this is really minimalistic. And then you go through each of them with your stakeholders. You discuss it, who is responsible for what, how are we approaching the same goal, when the goal is to achieve a good quality. And then, once you have this mind map, this breakdown, if you need, then you can formalize it in some document, in Confluence or whatever. But don't lose that mind map. And sometimes that mind map is just enough. The second area where I utilize mind map a lot of, it's about breakdowns of testing. And when we talk about breakdowns, we have to think about levels. And we can do a breakdown on the level of project, but that's very challenging and not a good idea because such mind map will be huge. If you are the only QA on the project, you are responsible for everything and nobody cooperates with you, then go ahead, make one big. But probably better level are epics and user stories. When my template for breakdown of the test approach of epic or user story always has these three things: requirements, what to test, and what is out of the scope. Then in the requirements I store some links, but more important are these doubts and questions. And this area is growing at the start, because when you heard about some user story or requirement, you have a lot of questions. So you point them there. Then you have a grooming, so you answer these questions. And at the time, when you start the development, this section will be big, but all of these questions and doubts will be answered. Otherwise, you probably should not start the development because you have some doubts. Then what to test, it's quite clear. It's how I will approach it during the testing, what are my strategies, automation, and so on. But never ever try to have a test cases in mind maps. These are ideas. I will do this and this and this and this, because we have better tools for test cases. And that area, it's so often forgotten. And to be honest, on every story there is something we are not going to test and we know it. Sometimes there are good reasons for that. If we do risk-based testing, if something has very low likelihood and no impact, why to test it? Just state I'm not testing, everybody is okay with that. But if the reason is, for example, time pressure, that somebody says you have 2 days to test it, you know I need 5, then state here what you would test and what are the risks to do not test it. Then maybe it triggers a good conversation. I put a quick example here of something very simple like login. And you can see that it grows and grows, and you also see that I'm using markers here, green, red. Again, these are no test results. These are my feeling. I think I tested that good enough, it works, I'm okay with that area. I have some problems here. Defects are another tool. This is only about general observation or general results. And then the last I would like to share with you in area of testing, it's about reporting. And again, think about levels. Test results cannot be stored in a mind map. I tried, no need to repeat that mistake. But very good reports are about sprint and then long term. Because every sprint or every release should be closed by some closing, and we need to produce some reports. And of course we can take these reports from all other tools, but then the mind map, it's perfect place where to store it in structured way. And also I find out that this particular mind map, it's the way how to sell mind maps to other stakeholders. Because if they get, after each sprint, report which has exactly same structure, they will think, okay, how can I utilize mind mapping in my work? And then they will start liking them. And then we talk about long-term QA report. And that's my favorite one. And I would say it's about these two guys. I think that they met in series 3 of Big Bang Theory. Now it's series 11 and they are expecting the baby. But that was very long path. And without such report, you have no idea to understand how they get there. And then now imagine that here is our current project in the state after 1 year of development. We need a report to understand what we did to be there, to understand the past and prepare for the future. So long-term QA report then can look like a bit similar to sprints one, but there are much more things to capture. We usually are on the level of releases. We should describe something like release context. What was this release about? Then we have sprints. Every sprint has its own context. Then we put there some general QA statement. All our defect analysis, especially trends, root cause analysis. Then some risks. The most important thing, customer satisfaction. How was the customer satisfied after that sprint? And so on and so on. And then I have a report when I can go back 1 sprint, 2 sprints, 3 releases, and I can understand what was happening. No chance to remember that. Before we go to Agile area, there are mind maps in testing are not good for test cases, test results, tracking, and live reports. It's really a big pain to do these things, especially if more QAs, like 5, 10 people are working on the same project. That will not work. So now to Agile, because we all live in Agile world. I think that the Sheldon here lives in some kind of hybrid development. But mind maps in Agile are very useful for the same reasons as in testing, because they provide a structure. And I would like to start with impact mapping. You can find more on this link, but impact mapping, it's about connecting our deliverables with our goals. And we have mind maps, impact mapping, so it's about finding the map between these. And why it is so important, it's because we very often work only on that level. We have that story, that story. In best, we connect them to some epic. But if you don't know what is the goal, for whom, what is the measurable impact, you should never work on that. And then you hear from our managers, it's just one story. It's just 1 day of work. Do it without asking. But then we will have hundreds of such 1 day work. And it will be a big erosion to our project, unnecessary variables. So such mapping should exist for every story. And mind maps are the best way how to capture this information, because it's really a map. Then, mind maps are also very good for requirements, especially for brainstorming. They are not good for complete requirement management because we have much better tools for that. But they are feeding these tools. Because we again need a breakdown. It looks like you use a story, but in a different order. Because the most important is why. This usually goes from that impact mapping, but if I cannot say why am I doing this, forget about it. Then for whom? And then also what? The important question is, how can I break it down to smaller pieces? And that's perfect in mind map. You will find out maybe it's not epic, it's some team. Team needs to be break down to epics, epics to stories. And then for each story, again, start with a goal. What is the goal? Then maybe tasks, acceptance criteria, some idea how I will test it. And then how, when important is to look back. Do we already have some experience with this? Are there any known risks? Do we already have idea how to implement it? If for all of these things you have answer no, then you need to do some proof of concepts and things like that. And then the last area about Agile, it's about mentoring. You will find out once you download it that mind map, it's so huge. And why I'm saying that, it's that sometimes people get scared when they took this mind map and trying to answer all of these questions on their project, that it's totally red. But I never had a project when everything in this mind map would be green. And you need to go one by one, because most of the projects are in a bad shape. But this will guide you through all of the questions you need to ask about process, requirements, quality assurance. And it's also important if you work in a bigger company, then you have different teams which are managed by different leads. All of these leads needs to have the same structure, because the worst thing what can happen in a big company is that on your previous project, your boss was pushing for this, and then somebody else is pushing on the next project for this. So that mind map, it's called a checklist, because we use it between different mentors to mentor the same thing. And then a perfect thing about that is that we can compare them. In general, it's a very bad idea to compare two projects, because they can have a different context. But if you are asking the same question to a lot of projects, you can compare the answers. And you can find out that you have maybe two main paths in your company. And then you should not push them together. But if you have 25, then you should probably push them somehow together. So this checklist will provide you with a structure you have to follow. And then again about what we should not use them for. Especially for any kind of project management, any kind of planning, requirements and defects. When you need something to have a history, to be somehow ordered and so on, we have all of these great tools, Jira, Rally, Trello and so on. And they have a different approach. They doesn't require that structure. So mind maps will not help here. But on the other hand, you can do plenty other things. Meeting notes, retrospectives. That's so cool things to have a report about retrospectives. Brainstorming, exploratory testing plans, interviews. And even I found out that I'm using mind maps a lot in my personal life. Like trip planning and things like that. Whenever I need that structure. But also, I always need to have in my mind that there are these three aspects when mind maps are challenging. I say challenging because you can solve them. But it's always about when you need to cooperate, when you need some versioning or tracking. Because they were not created for that. They have some support, like you can put them to Git or Subversion, you can merge them somehow, but sometimes that merge is not good. Or the comments or some workflow. It could be achieved, but think about it at the start of your project. If you are going to use the mind maps, how we are going to solve that? Because asking these questions in the middle, that will not work. And knowing that, I can really say that they are amazing, at least for me. But it's again just a tool. And when any tool limits you, or it influences the goals, or forces you to do something which you know or feel is wrong, then it's a wrong tool. Or you are using that tool in a wrong way. And I promised you downloads. So I hope that it works. And on that Dropbox, you will find like 10 templates. Some of them you saw today. And feel free to use them, reuse them, share them. They are created in software called Xmind. It's a free software. Or at least that free edition is enough to work with this template. And if you have any templates you would like to share with me, I would really appreciate it. Because it's always good to learn from each other. And that would be all from me. So now it's time for questions.
Hello. Thank you for your speech, and I want to say that I really appreciated that someone in QA uses Xmind like me. I mean that I use Xmind every day. My whole life is located in my big maps, and I have a quick question. And as far as I can see, you use Xmind, and is good enough for you? I mean, in the past I used the Mindjet Manager, and it was really cooler. I mean, it can count budget, it can summarize, and can manage a project. It has a Gantt diagram and so on. And why do you use Xmind? I mean, it is really simple, and they don't have enough of functionality.
The answer will be taken from Michael's talk. It's about habits. And because I'm using mind map for already, 8 years, I'm so used to. And I tried a lot of different tools, and I didn't find the advantages on my current projects where it would work. And the second thing is that in that free version of Xmind, I find out that it's very simple, even for people who never work with mind maps. So it's very good tool to start with. And if you buy that paid version, then I have everything in that what I need. And the rest thing I solve by Git and integration with some other tools.
I don't agree. I mean that in my job you can create API requests, you can create DB requests, you can do a lot of things. And Xmind is really easy tools, and I don't understand how do you use it in real life. I mean that not paid version doesn't have searching, doesn't have you can search you can search for example 2 markets. You can search only 1 markers. I mean that it is not great tools. Xmind is really simple tools for using it every day. I don't know.
I agree. Maybe I like that simplicity.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for really inspirational talk. So your talk is named like Mind Maps for Agile. So Agile is a set of concepts that we use to deliver software, and mind maps are actually a set of concepts that we use to structure our thoughts. So, and for example, we have Scrum, which is one type of the Agile, which is the framework that we massively use. So usually we don't mix Scrum and Agile, hopefully. Do you know, or probably you can advise, do we have some frameworks for mind maps? I mean, some recommended templates, recommended ways to use it for, I don't know, Scrum projects or any other types of Agile projects. So it's about getting down from concepts into frameworks for mind maps. Thanks.
Yes. Why I put there Agile, it's because I have the experience with Agile, I have no experience with Waterfall. I believe that they can be used in Waterfall too. But for Scrum especially, the sprint closing report, it's very good to do in mind map. Then definition of ready and definition of done. You will find my template, but this is a good thing to describe. And then grooming and retrospectives. Grooming, especially breakdown and defining when we are done with a grooming. And then managing all retrospectives in a mind map I find very useful because I have my good things, deltas, actions, action points from that actions. I can track everything there. So these three things. But they are good for any kind of Agile because at the end, it's always a mix of different techniques. I never saw pure Scrum. I never saw pure Kanban. You always build something yours, what is best.
Hello. Hello. For beginners, thank you for useful speech. I want to ask, do you know some plugins for Jira or other Atlassian products for MindMap?
No.
Ok. Thank you.
The problem is that for a long time I'm not using Jira, but I know that there is some plugin to Confluence. So if you have Confluence with Jira, then something exists. But maybe somebody else has the answer who use Jira a lot with mind maps. No? But I'm not aware of any.
Больше нет вопросов? Окей. Давайте поблагодарим еще раз.
Thank you.